In this lecture, we are going to take a look at while looping control structure. So basically, while looping control structure have a condition. So the condition the statement under the while looping control structure will continuously execute until the condition in the while becomes true. So to see this, we are going to create a program that will calculate average of student scores. So the program will accept a set of scores from the user of the program, and then compute the average of the scores. So the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to input the scores. So we write scores. Score equals to, and then we input. Now I will make assume that the score is going to be in float. So input, please enter the score. All right, so before entering the score, let's get to know the number of students, so that we know that the number of scores that when we know the number of the students, then we know how many scores we are expecting from the user of the program. So please enter the number of the student. Enter the number of students. All right. So now the user of the program. So I'll change this to number of students. Number of students. Alright, so the first thing that we did, we asked the user of the program to tell us the number of students. So we at this stage, we know the number of students whose scores average we are going to create. We are going to compute in this program. Now I'm going to initialize some variables. Total scores. So our total scores. Equals to 0. Okay, total scores equals to 0. So this line number 8, basically what I did, I created a variable with the name of total score, and I initialize it with the value 0. So we have some keywords in programming. Initialization means assigning value to variable for the first time. So we just created a variable total score and we assign it with the value 0. So we can say we assign it the value 0, or we initialize it with the value 0, since this is the first time we are giving it value. And even as the name suggests, we call it variable. That means that if the value of the variable can change within while we are in the course of running the program. So the total score is it has been initialized with the value 0, but that doesn't mean that it will maintain this value 0 till the end of the program. So the opposite of a variable, we still have a constant, we shall also come across subsequently in this ethical hacking with Python 3 course. So total scores as a variable, we have initialized it with the value 0. Okay. Next, I'm going to create another variable, student counter. Student counter. So here, so let me call it student counter. Student counter equals to 0 also. Okay, so now I created another variable, student counter, and I initialize it with the value 0. So this will keep track of the number of scores that the user of this program is entering. So once the user of this program enter the score for the first student, then the student counter will increment. It will keep incrementing till the last student score has been entered. Then it will calculate the then it will divide the total score by the student counter, so that we can have the average. All right, so now let's proceed. Now the next thing, let's have our while condition. So while, then we have the condition. So while student counter, is less than student counter is less than number of students. Number of students. So we want to execute some statements. We want score. We want to get the score from the user of this program. We want him to enter score, and that the score we are going to convert it to float, and then we call the input function. Please enter the score. Please enter a score. Enter a score. Okay, so this will prompt the user to enter a score. So after entering a score, we are going to add the score to the variable, to the to the variable that is in charge of accumulating the aggregate scores. Okay, so we have total scores. Total scores equals to total scores plus score. So this will keep accumulating the scores that the program is getting from the terminal. Okay, so total score, initial total score is 0, and we say total score equals to, so at this stage now total score equals to 0 plus score plus whatsoever the user of this program enters, then it will be added, and then it keep on collecting the scores and adding it and assigning it to the variable total scores. Also, the student counter has incremented in the since the user of this program has entered score for a student, so we are going to also increment the student counter. Okay, so we have student counter, which is student counter equals to student counter. Student counter, we are going to increment it by 1 each time a score for a student has been entered. We are going to increment it by 1. Okay, so this is how basically how the program will work. So after by the time the student counter is no longer less than number of students, that means we have entered we have exhausted the number of the students scores. We have entered the scores for all the students. That means at that point the student counter, this condition will no longer hold, will no longer be true. Then we are going to exit out of this while condition. So this the statement from line number 12 to line number 14 will keep on executing so long as this condition is true. Student counter is less than number of students, but meanwhile the student counter is also incrementing till the point when the student counter is no longer less than number of students. That means at that point we have entered all the scores for the students. All right, so now at this point we can now calculate the average and then print it out. But before we do that, let us print the number of the student. The number of students entered is, so we can enter the number of students is student counter. Student counter, we can make use of either student counter or number of student variable, whichever one. So student counter, and then print also the total score. The total score for the student. Is, so also then we have the student okay, so we have total scores total scores Okay, so also now we can proceed to calculate the average. Okay, so we can average, we can create a variable average. Let me come down one line. So we have average. Okay, so we can have average, which is what we the main aim of the program. Average equals to total scores, divide by number of students, all right, number of students. Okay, so total scores divided by the total number of students. All right, and then after that, now we can print out the average. Print out the average score. The average score is, and then we can just print out the average. So we can average, and then all right. So before we go far, let's run this program and make sure that everything is working correctly. All right. So okay. So while.py. All right. All right. Save. So let's go to the terminal and run this program and see if it is working correctly. Ls, make sure that I am on the correct directory. We have while. All right. We are not having while in this directory. Okay. Comparison while. Okay, I've seen while. Okay. So Python 3 while.py. So let's run it. Enter the number of students. Now let's enter. We have 3 students. Enter a score. I will enter 2. Enter 2. All right. So the number of students is 3. Yes, I've entered score number of students, which is correct. Total score for the student is 6, which is also correct. And the average score is 6. 6 divided by 3 is, of course, 2, which is the average. So we can see that this program is calculating the average correctly. Okay, so let's go to the program and see if we can enhance it further. If there are some things that we can do to from the output, are we satisfied with the output? Enter the number of students. Okay, all right. So let's create some space before we get the final score. So number of students. Let's print an empty line here, so we can print function with an empty argument, without calling print function with an empty argument, that is not supplying any argument. This will just print an empty line. Okay, so print a white space. I can add a comment here. So this will print white space, print a white space, so this will basically print out a white space. Okay, so we have then print the total scores. I can also, before this, please enter a score. Okay, so before this, I can also have a white space. Print a white space. Print. So basically, I'm saying this is printing a white space. Print a white space. Print a white space. All right, then I'll save it and then go back to the terminal and run it and see if I'm satisfied with the output. Right. Clear the terminal and then run the program. Please enter a number 2. A number of students. Okay, and 2. Enter a score. Let's say 3. Enter a score. Let's say 5. The number of students enter is 2. Total score for the student is 8, and the average score is 4.0. Of course, which is 8. Total score 8 divided by 2, which of course is 4. All right, so we can see that our program is working correctly. So basically, in summary, this is how while repetition control structure. So it is called while repetition structure or while looping structure. So while repetition structure or while looping structure. Okay, so basically we have while and then we have a condition. Now the condition is the condition. If the condition still holds true, then the statement under the while structure will keep on executing until this condition becomes false. So until the condition becomes false, once the condition becomes false, then program control will be transferred to the line immediately after the while structure. So as soon as this condition becomes false, then program control will be transferred to line number 20. Line number 9 is a comment, so it will be ignored. So program control will be transferred to line number 20, which will basically print out a white space. All right. So this is how a while repetition control structure works.